What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. Another Friday, another episode of Why Are We Bullish? All new guests this Friday. Very excited for this conversation. Should be a lot of fun. As always, of course, like, subscribe, share. All those things really do help the show. This is live. Anything can happen, so I defer to my friend Bill here.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
Before we get rolling, of course, I want to give a big shout out to my #1 fan, David. David was here 3 hours early in the comment section. I love you, man. Can't wait to hear your takes on everything that's going on today. But also for everybody else that's already here, love you too. I am Ben with the BTC Sessions. This is your daily session.
Hodl the Bitcoin.
All right, before we bring in our guests, let's take a look at where we are in the market right now. This is the bitbo.io dashboard. We're sitting at $39,000, almost $500 per coin. A single US dollar will pick you up 2,532 sats. 90.33% of all Bitcoin have been mined. And in terms of fees, it looks like around 7 sats per byte for the next block. Anything beyond that, 1 sat per byte will do you. So no major worries there. Quick shout out to sponsors of the show, Shakepay.com. If you're in Canada, very easy way to grab some more Bitcoin. E-transfers for deposits, no withdrawal fees. They cover the miner fee for you, thin spread. And on top of that, link down below. If you use it after your first $100 purchase, they'll give you $30 for free. And you can also refer friends and be able to shake your phone every day for free sats. And they got a sats back Visa card, all kinds of stuff over at Shakepay. Check them out. Also, LEDN.io, you can use your Bitcoin for a ton of different stuff. In particular, if you're in a pinch and you need dollars, but you don't want to sell your Bitcoin, easy way to do it here. Deposit, get dollars to your bank account within 24 hours. And when you pay back those dollars, you get back the same amount of Bitcoin. They, of course, also have savings for Bitcoin and USDC, and they have a B2X offering if you're feeling bullish. But be careful. Leverage is a shady beast. You don't want to be on the bad side of that. Bitrefill.com helps a ton. I am living on Bitcoin, and all the gift cards that I need are on here. I can buy with Bitcoin, on-chain, and Lightning. I earn sats back as I shop, and there's a pretty good referral program to earn you some extra sats there too. Keystone, one of my favorite and most used hardware wallets. It's 100% air-gapped, meaning you don't plug it into anything internet connected. It's all done offline via QR code, keeps your keys to your money away from internet connections. Highly recommend you upgrade to the Bitcoin-only firmware, as that makes it beautiful in a multi-sig. And the thing already works beautifully with Blue Wallet, Wasabi, Sparrow, Spectre, all that good stuff. So check them out in the links down below. And finally, if you're backing up any important Bitcoin wallet, get in solid steel. Paper doesn't cut it, you know, fire damage, water damage, all that stuff. BillFodl at privacypros.io. This is how I usually back up my important Bitcoin wallets. Gives me some peace of mind. So check them out. With that, I'm going to stop my rambling. I got to get everybody in here. We've got Brianna, we've got Dan, we've got Brandon. Welcome everybody to the show. All new guests. Very excited to have you. So let's do a quick round of intros. I'm just going to go in the order that I have on my screen. So Brianna, welcome. First time guest. Can you let people know who you are and what you do?
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm Brianna. I'm Chief of Staff at Noah. We're building an all-in-one money app that can be used globally. So think savings, loans, credit, lightning payments, all in one place. If you don't know what Noah is or you haven't heard of it, check out noah.com. We like to say we're the money app of the future. So
that's exciting. And so I guess I'll be learning more about it today, but again, living on Bitcoin, I'm always looking for new stuff for that. So I'm very excited. I joined the waitlist, and I left a link in the show notes to sign up for the waitlist, because I'm very curious. And if it's anything that helps me live on Bitcoin, then I very much would enjoy that. So yeah, if you're curious about them, and I'm sure you'll be talking about it in the show, check them out down below. But yeah, thanks for being here. Let's let's get the other gentleman to give a little intro. Brandon, I'll go to you first. Who are you? What do you do?
All right, I am Brandon. I am a co-founder of Green Candle Investments, along with Dan. We host the State of Bitcoin podcast, as well as write a couple newsletters. One strictly on Bitcoin, basically revolved around our State of Bitcoin podcast. And we host Twitter Spaces as well every 4:30 p.m. Eastern time, so a little bit before this. And then we also do a little stock market and stock analysis stuff as well. And we host the Sunday Scary Stock Talk podcast there too. So we got a lot going on here at Green Candle.
Damn, that's awesome. Well, I'm excited to have you and the guys over at the Canadian Bitcoin podcast. Highly recommend you guys. So I'm happy to have you on. But we'll see if you gave Dan anything else to say. But Dan, welcome as well. Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, good to be here. I'm Dan. Brandon crushed it, co-founder Green Candle. And as he said, yeah, we're just pumping out a bunch of content right now. And 9 to 5, I'm a data scientist. So yeah, that's me.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you all for being here. Those watching also, thanks for being here. Canadian Bitcoiners are in the house, as well as I have to, all the new guests that are unfamiliar. I also have to introduce them to David. David is my #1 fan. He hates Bitcoin, but he is here every Friday, sometimes hours early. And so David would like to say that Bitcoin has too much promotion, but no action so far. And I very much value that input. So thank you, David. He also wants to know, maybe you guys can answer this. He also wants to know why all these Bitcoiners seem to be living in apartments. Do you guys have a retort to that, or?
Well, technically I live in a duplex, so I don't know if that's considered an apartment or not, but yeah, I mean, I guess kind of it's a house according to the mortgage lender. So
yeah.
Is that Peter Schiff's burner account or what?
It could be. I don't know, but we love him here. I think he's like the sessions mascot. So I'm happy to have him every week. So yeah, this is for those unfamiliar watching right now. This is Why Are We Bullish? We go by the 3 R's. Very simple here. Somebody's going to give a reason why they're feeling bullish this week, or whatever time frame you're going with. Then altogether, after your little rant, we're going to riff on that reason altogether. And then finally, we will rotate to the next person until we get all the way through. Really simple. So I typically get us started, and then we'll just go around. Just looking at my screen right now, it'll probably be me. Then I'll go Brianna, then Brandon, then Dan. If that's cool with you guys. But I'm going to get us started off. And so my reason for being bullish has to do around Bitcoin's scaling and Bitcoin's privacy. And so what I was thinking about a lot this past little bit, past couple of weeks, couple of months, even longer, in and around the scaling bit. That was very contentious and worrisome back when I kind of first dove into Bitcoin. 2014, 15, 16, and around there, people they didn't know how things were going to play out. Would there be a block size increase? Were we going to hard fork? All these different things, or Bitcoin just can't scale. And then we had the implementation of SegWit, which effectively allowed for more transactions, more transactional throughput in each block. But it also added some features needed in order to allow for the creation of Lightning Network and allow that to be implemented. And so now we're seeing on-chain has scaled. We're seeing Lightning Network has scaled Bitcoin massively. And we're also seeing sidechains like Liquid Network helping to scale Bitcoin. But there's still, people look at that and they say, even with Lightning Network, if you really break it down, at some point it could be difficult for people to get on-chain exposure. And are we going to have to default to custodial models and everything like that to allow people to actually interact with Bitcoin? And it makes me think back to old Andreas Antonopoulos talks when he talks about scaling Bitcoin and how the internet scaled and how it failed to scale gracefully over and over again. And you'd always bump up into these kind of ceilings until you burst through them. And there's a new innovation that allows it to scale more. You know, at first it was, you know, you had text, and then everybody started putting pictures on the internet. And how the hell are you going to scale that? And then they managed to. And then all of a sudden YouTube happens, and oh my God, the internet will never handle this. And then it does. And now we're doing 4K video streaming direct to multiple TVs in our home. And next is, you know, VR and all these different things. And the internet is scaling to do them. And we're kind of seeing the same thing from Bitcoin, because we're starting to see these little improvements at the base layer and in layers above. And one of these new proposals, it's not implemented, it's not close to being implemented, but it's a possibility down the line, is something called coin pool. And so I'm gonna share my screen here, but this is from Marty Bent over at Tales from the Crypt on his newsletter, which if you're not subscribed, the Bent is an excellent daily read. But he talks about something called coin pool. And what this effectively means is that you could have fractional ownership of an individual Bitcoin UTXO. So you could have a provable ownership of a part of a Bitcoin on chain, not just Lightning Network, not in secondary layers, but on chain. This will require a few soft forks to make it possible, but you could create a coin pool where there's, say, a UTXO for one Bitcoin, and you own 2% of that single Bitcoin UTXO. And not only that, but you can transfer ownership of that piece of Bitcoin within that single UTXO back and forth. And so what I'm getting at here is where there was an assumption that eventually people may not have on-chain ownership of Bitcoin down the line in terms of scaling. It's looking like there's a possibility that it could massively scale on-chain Bitcoin with something like this. And so the reason that I kind of got thinking about that is in relation to privacy, is I think of where we were 2014, 15, 16 in Bitcoin in and around scaling. And it was like, it became a big debate and a worrisome thing, particularly in and around early 2017, of how the hell is this thing ever going to scale? It's so contentious. And then all of a sudden, these past few years, just a flurry of activity in and around this, because it became needed. It became a thing that people were concerned enough about, and enough people wanted to put time and effort into, that we're starting to see the fruits of people's labor at this point. And I think that the same thing, given the political climate around the globe right now, particularly where I am in Canada, I think we're going to see the same thing happen with privacy. But I think we're already starting from a better position than where we were in terms of scaling. And I say that because I've done a shitload of videos on different privacy tools for Bitcoin. You know, you have, you know, decentralized exchanges that you can go to if you're not keen on KYC'd exchanges. Are they super easy? That's debatable. I'd say not quite yet. But you also have CoinJoin implementations. You have Sparrow Wallet implementing Whirlpool along with Samurai Wallet. You have Wasabi. You also have state chains, which allow you to basically swap UTXOs with people with no indication that anything has happened on chain, which is crazy. And then more recently, I did a video on PANELISTS, which is basically like a public ID that you can easily share and receive on-chain Bitcoin without sharing a public address that people can then take as a starting point of, oh, we all know that this is this person's address. So there's a lot going on in the realm of privacy right now. I think I've heard rumblings of PANELISTS rolling out to other wallets. It's already kind of half baked into Sparrow, and I imagine that will be fully baked in sooner or later here. I've heard rumblings about Blue Wallet adding it and potentially others. And even outside of that, Lightning Network, you know, there's a higher degree of privacy with Lightning transactions. I just think there's so much happening already prior to this shitstorm that has been the beginning of this year, that it is inevitable that these tools will continue to be fine-tuned, built upon, and new tools that we haven't even seen yet are going to hit the ground running. And I'm very excited for that. So I guess I'll leave it as the things that we are worried about today, which I see a lot of in terms of privacy, are becoming easier to use. And given what I've seen with scaling, I don't think we've seen anything yet. 5 years out from now, I can only imagine how awesome some of the tools are going to be. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts around scaling, around privacy, around tools in Bitcoin that you want to chime in on, and anybody can jump in.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I don't know much about CoinPool. I was looking at Marty's article and then reading the white paper. I still don't fully have my mind wrapped around it, so I won't speak specifically about CoinPool. But I think things like the Lightning Network are absolutely massive for scalability. Now the key is to implement them into things that are incredibly easy to use, which is why I'm so bullish to see things like Cash App and Strike that have implemented Lightning Network in a super easy to use, intuitive app. Because at the end of the day, you're just not going to capture, I think, a broad part of the population without a very easy and intuitive UI UX, right? Like it's gonna be about the developers creating the apps now, I think, to capture people. Like I think about my dad who's in his 60s. You know, trust me, he doesn't want to go through. I tried to get him set up with a cold card. It's tough. It's tough to get people to buy into these things when it's complicated. And then especially in the US. So, you know, I see what's going on in Canada, and it's unfortunate that so many people in the West have to experience these things firsthand to understand the demand for them. And it's unfortunate that we are starting to experience them firsthand, but you know, the freezing of bank accounts, this kind of stuff's been happening globally for decades now. And now we're experiencing it. So maybe that's going to speed people up on creating the things, the technologies that we need to enhance privacy. But yeah, as far as scalability, it's, you know, I love to see these privacy tools, and now it's just about the developers implementing them into easy to use and intuitive UI UX designs.
Yeah. I got it. You mentioned about your dad. I got to tell you, I had a parental win the other day. I was so excited. My stepdad, who's just about to retire, called me up the other day. He's like, "Okay, Ben, I just need one little bit of help here." He was in the midst of, for the first time, utilizing his hardware wallet, which has his Bitcoin on it, to make a payment to Bull Bitcoin to pay a bill. So he literally had his laptop out. He had his hardware wallet queued up. It opened. He had Bull Bitcoin open, and he was paying a bill or sending money to his bank account through the interface. And he basically did it all on his own. Literally the only issue that he had is he just didn't see the part where there was a drop-down menu, like to get to the next step. But he literally got through doing his own hardware wallet Bitcoin transaction to an entity to pay an online bill with Bitcoin. And I was blown away. And I think he was very proud of himself too, because my mom told me that he was bragging afterwards.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's interesting too, because like that little drop down box, that's just UI. Like, yeah. Oh, if it's not intuitive that's where you have to go next. That's just a UI problem. Like, yeah. I think the privacy part of it is the hard part to solve. Now it's just figuring out like putting together a good UI UX so that it is intuitive, so that, you know, you see the drop down box right away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that too. And I kind of have a similar story with like onboarding my parents. That was my Christmas gift to them, was giving them all some Bitcoin, and I did it through Cash App, and just showing them kind of how easy it was through the Lightning Network, and how it was so simple to transfer, funds from one person to another with very little fees and everything like that. It kind of got them a little bit more interested. But yeah, I definitely agree on the privacy tools. I think that it's going to start scaling. I think that the original start of Bitcoin was kind of the use case was on the Silk Road, right? So people were using it and it was very difficult to keep the privacy, but that was, the reason for the design, right? And now we're kind of seeing more widespread need for that privacy. Unfortunately, we're facing some of those issues here in the West. The issues in Canada and everywhere else are really unfortunate. And, it's tough to see down here in the US too, that it's happening so close to us. I for one, maybe I'm ignorant, but never would have thought that something like this would be happening, in Canada or the United States or, anywhere this close. But I definitely think that this, as unfortunate as it is kind of maybe a push for developers to start helping, make those privacy tools a little bit better and a little bit more accessible. So like the average person, like Dan's parents, my parents, and people who maybe aren't as tech savvy can, have that privacy and still have access to their money and their capital. So,
I definitely think so. And it's funny because you say that, some of the original thought back in the day with Silk Road and, oh, this is private and everything. And everybody, and that was an ongoing narrative for quite some time, even amongst mainstream media. Oh, it's totally anonymous, which obviously it was not. And now it's starting to be, I see more mainstream stuff about it where it's like, oh no, you can actually track every bit of this. I'm wondering if the narrative will lag behind again and everybody be like, oh no, you can absolutely see everything as all of these tools improve. And all of a sudden it does become pretty private and the narrative is lagging. They're like, oh no, you can see everything. But the Bitcoiners are like, actually, no, you can't. So that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, it kind of seems like the FUD cycles through Bitcoin, right? So, it uses too much energy, then it doesn't, and then it comes back. So it might be one of those things where it's just kind of a never ending cycle.
Yeah, probably. Brianna, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually have a funny parent story too. My mom has been a Bitcoiner since like 2015. And she wears her open dime on a necklace around her neck and she sleeps with it every night. But yeah, she's obsessed. She messages me about it every single day and I'm like, wow, you're really on top of the news more than I am. No, but going back to the UI UX point that Dan was making, I think whoever figures out how to make a truly non-custodial wallet that is, super, super user-friendly to the point where I could hand it over to someone, a random person on the street and they would figure out how to use it. I think that's, the billion sat question, right? Like, how do we build an app like that? I think whoever figures that out is going to be very, very rich.
Speaking of a billion sats, does your mom have a billion sats sitting on that open
dime? I cannot disclose any of that information. I don't even know. She won't tell me, so no idea. It could be like a decoy. I have no idea. So
yeah, probably. That's awesome. Well, I guess we can round this this topic out here. Again, in general, if anybody's watching and they're curious about these types of tools, it's still early stages with a lot of it's still early stages with Bitcoin itself. But if you're curious about this kind of stuff, again, I've got a full playlist. It basically covers like different different things to consider when thinking about Bitcoin privacy, decentralized exchanges like Bisq, Sparrow and Wasabi and Samurai. It talks about PANELISTS, and it does have state chains, which is a relatively newer development as well. So if you're looking to play around and just learn about those things, then feel free to dive in, and also let me know what you think, what troubles you have, what concerns you may have. Yeah, that'd be awesome. But with that, let's do a little rotation here. Thanks everybody in the chat, by the way, that's here. I'm going to start pulling up more comments and stuff now that I'm through with my topic. But we're going to jump over to Brianna, and I'm going to let you have your little rant. What are you excited about right now?
Well, I don't know if you saw, but speaking of Cash App earlier, Cash App released their Q4 report recently, and they reported a nearly $2 billion Bitcoin revenue in Q4 of last year. And to me, that coupled with their Lightning integration excites me for a few reasons. First of all, more people are using Bitcoin for payments, right? Cash App is a payments application. And then I'm also seeing that neobanks built on fiat rails are feeling the pressure, and seeing the potential for Bitcoin payments. They're basically limited by what fiat can do, right? And the numbers don't lie. There's demand. I think though that these neobanks are a little bit behind because they're still built on fiat, and like I said, they're trying to catch up, right? People still don't use Bitcoin because it's too volatile, it's confusing, there's too many steps, the barrier to entry is way too high, right? But the thing is, like we were all saying, we're building for the future, not for the present, the limitations that currently exist. And it's clear to me that even now Bitcoin can be so much more intuitive. It can be so much easier to use, depending on what you're using it for. And obviously, if you build the right application, like we were all saying, it really comes down to building an app that my dad can use, that my little sister can use, right? I don't want it to have to be something that people think about, and people shouldn't think about what money app they're using, right? I think nowadays, if you're living on fiat, which most people in the world are, you're using like 5 to 10 apps to deal with your money. You're using your Chase or your Wells Fargo for your banking, and then you have your 10 different payment apps. You have your Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, etc. Depending on who uses what. You have all of your different investment portfolios, your savings, maybe your money tracking apps. It's just too hectic. It's too much. And Bitcoin solves a lot of this, right? You can actually marry banking and payments together with Bitcoin. And I think this is what a lot of these neobanks are trying to do, like Cash App and Venmo, right? They're trying to introduce Bitcoin. But Noah, for example, the company that I'm running with an amazing team, we're marrying payments and banking together. So you won't have to switch from your Wells Fargo to your Venmo. It'll all be in one place, right? You'll be able to, receive your direct deposits into the Noah app as Bitcoin or as a stable coin, in case you want it, you're a little uneasy about using Bitcoin or receiving Bitcoin, right? And then in the same place, you can send Lightning payments to any other Lightning wallet with your own Lightning address. So now you're not using this random string of numbers and letters. You're using Brianna@noah.me, and you can send Bitcoin to anyone around the world, anyone who has a Lightning wallet, anyone who has a Bitcoin wallet, regardless of the platform, regardless of the app, right? Then there's so many options for adding credit cards to this, using your Bitcoin as collateral. What if you don't have credit? What do, right? But you have Bitcoin because you get paid in Bitcoin, or you live in a country where that is the only way you can get paid. For example, there's so many opportunities to make banking and payments come together. And so that's what I'm really excited about.
This is all music to my ears, because a single location where because unfortunately there's still a couple ways in which I get fiat. And so for instance, YouTube, any ad revenue that just comes in from YouTube is a direct deposit to a Canadian bank, which I intuitively I knew, but very recently found out specifically that that's not a super reliable place to store any amount of money. So having a place where fiat coming in can convert to Bitcoin instantly, and then I can pay any relevant bills right out the hop. And then, if I choose to have some sort of a savings mechanism, I can do that through there. But if I want self-custody in a Lightning wallet or on chain or something, I can just do that immediately. It removes the multitude of apps that I currently do that with. So yeah, that's definitely something that I hope that I can experience soon. Is there an ETA on like where are you guys at?
Yeah, so gosh, all of us have our heads down and we're just working away to build this app. But right now our MVP is going to be ready, hopefully right before the Bitcoin conference. And we're closing the waitlist in a couple of weeks, which, by the way, we haven't announced yet, but we're closing the waitlist in a couple of weeks, and we're going to let people pre-register their Lightning addresses, the top 100 on the waiting list. So you'll be able to get a sweet Lightning address. But very excited for the MVP. It's going to be very simple. For us, the most important thing is building an app that's very, very user friendly, right? We're testing with so many different user segments, and I'm testing with a lot of people in my life that don't use Bitcoin, that don't understand Bitcoin, that think that Bitcoin encapsulates all cryptocurrencies, which is a lot of people, right? And so really we're very focused on making this an app that everyone can use. So it obviously takes time.
Yeah.
But the MVP will be ready very, very soon, hopefully by the beginning of April. So very excited about that.
That's exciting. Yeah. Are you going to be down in Miami for the conference? Are you going to be there?
Of course. Yeah.
I'll get to meet you there. Awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Well, I mean, I already said my bit. I'll let Brendan and Dan dive in if you want.
Yeah, we'll also be down in at Bitcoin Miami as well. So hopefully we'll meet you guys there, grab a beer or something. But yeah, I mean, this makes me extremely bullish as well. I've had actually some real issues dealing with my fiat to try to transfer it to various locations lately. I don't know if you guys have had this similar issue, but there's in the States, at least, there's this company called Plaid that allows you to transfer money from one place to another. So it even makes it difficult to transfer money into my Roth IRA account, which is, extremely frustrating. And then I always have like problems, transferring it from one bank to another. And then it's like, all right, well, I have to go through all these loops and bounds in order to get my direct deposit to a different bank from my W-2 job. So, that's another issue that I think very many people, at least in the United States, probably globally, experience as well, where it's like, okay, I have my money in one place and it's just very difficult to use it or transfer it to another place. I know too, there was a long period of time where a lot of merchants in the United States didn't accept like American Express credit cards. So you had to have multiple in order to do that. And I think this is a big issue that Bitcoin solves, where if you have something or a location and it just has access to the Lightning network, you could transfer it seemingly anywhere at any place at any time. And you don't need, that third party middleman that's kind of, causing you to go through some hurdles and things like that. So good on you, Brianna. And I hope the program or everything rolls out smoothly. And I think I'm going to join the wait list here shortly too, as well. So.
To your note
Awesome.
about it's difficult moving money around. I mean, Brianna, you were saying with Lightning integration, again, that not only allows you to seamlessly move in and out like into Lightning wallets, but to other platforms. And this is one of the big things that Jack Mallers talks about, is they're plugged in to a global like a global network for value. It's not that it's a walled garden with a whole bunch of features. It's that you can flow into and out of anything that's connected to the Lightning network seamlessly. So if you've got money in Strike, you can go over to Noah. If you've got money in Strike or Cash App or Noah, you can flow between them in any other place that allows for Lightning. And that's I think where we're headed, and things like Robinhood and PayPal and Venmo and all that shit, they're going to be playing catch up if they don't get on this train pretty quick. But
yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. It's all about interoperability, right?
Yeah. Dan, if you wanted to dive in at all too.
Yeah, sure. The other thing, I mean, you mentioned what Mahlers is doing with Strike. With Strike, you can do it with cash too, right? So it's crazy. We talk about moving money around. If I wanted to send, I won't name what bank I use, but if I wanted to send money to my own mother, like through just my bank, if I want to get it to her today, right now, the fee is like $35 or something. It's a high fee. And the thing is, like, I could tell my mom, well, I could send you money instantaneously through the Lightning Network, but she's going to say, well, she doesn't know anything about Bitcoin. She wants to have cash. She wants to have fiat, right? So it's not just about making the UI design and having all of these privacy tools, but then it's also about how do you get your customers to trust you. So Brianna, I'm wondering, when you deal with people that aren't Bitcoin users, is there a trust problem that you've got to solve before you can convince them to onboard? And if so, how do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Trust it's something that you earn, right? But for us, a reason, for example, why we're using stable coins in addition to Bitcoin, that won't be in our MVP, but that is in the roadmap, is because we want people to feel comfortable with the idea of maybe switching a little bit back and forth or receiving their first paycheck in the app, right? Maybe they're uncomfortable with receiving it in Bitcoin, but they're a little bit more comfortable seeing a USD sort of denominated currency. So I think that's going to be helpful in onboarding a lot of my friends, for example, who do not trust Bitcoin, and quite a few folks. I also think it's a matter of education, right? So on our end, it's very important for us to start creating very educational materials that, really guide you throughout the app to help you understand, why are we using Bitcoin right now? What is Lightning? Do you even need to know what Lightning is, right? I think it all starts with, people are usually scared of things they don't understand. And so, all of us right now, we're explaining, I don't know to who, but we're helping in that education process. And I think that's equally as important. But yeah, it all starts with education, and then also just kind of helping people slowly get into Bitcoin. It's not black and white.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and all of it's there's a learning process to it, and then there's the UI and the comfort, and you're right. Some people, they need something semi-familiar, or maybe they're just using Bitcoin as a payments rails and don't even realize it. But if it's available there as an option, that familiarity, those touch points become the impetus to maybe start looking at it and reading about it, or considering it, or saving a little bit in it here and there. And things like, I love the idea of rewards points being in Bitcoin, things like that. I think that's so much more forward thinking than the early push of, we just need merchant adoption, because it just became like a shtick, right? It's a marketing ploy to try and get new customers, which typically never really worked, especially back then, because people were like, well, I want to get Bitcoin. I want to own some Bitcoin, but why would you take dollars, buy Bitcoin to then exchange Bitcoin for dollars to then buy something, right? So I think that the idea of getting people curious about Bitcoin on their own and actually wanting Bitcoin is a much better route than trying to push merchants that don't give a shit to accept it. I think it's better to just bridge the gap. But yeah, I got Cypher Poet is in the chat. He said, offering like a testnet mode, or like just a way to pretend that you're sending, or do like an imaginary account or something like that to see how it works, is a great way for Bitcoin and Lightning products to educate users without having risk actual sats. And also, I got to give a hat tip to Cypher Poet. He helps me all the time in the background with the show. Now, actually, he helps me do like uploads and show notes and everything. And so I'm eternally grateful for him. So I'm excited to see him watching the stream. So thanks, man. Glad you're here. There's also been some slights and some jabs at, in particular, Dan. I guess Dan's just a shady guy, but there's a lot of poking at Dan. And also so Dan,
Unreal.
are you a shady guy? What's the deal here?
Well, I can't see the comments. I don't know what they're saying about me.
Yeah,
Dan,
well,
just go to the comment section on the right next to the privacy chat in this screen.
yeah,
Okay.
some person with the with the green candle.
I don't know who that is.
I don't know. It says that Dan looks like Will Clemente, or at least agreed with some of the earlier comments. They're also saying that you may be on the sauce. You may be drinking mid-show.
Well, look, I want to address. I'm drinking just water today. I want to address David Wong, though, #1 fan here, saying you can use PayPal and she'll get it right away. Well, check out the fee structure on PayPal, right? Like if you use Lightning Network, you can get it virtually, for free. So, yeah. I mean, and then as far as the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast goes over there, I see them chatting up. These guys are just scumbags, man. I can't. I can't follow half the things. I can't follow half the things they're talking about on their show. They use Canadian. I don't know, like
those thick, disgusting Canadian accents. What's up with that?
It's not the accents, but they have all these phrases that I just don't understand.
We actually got into a big spat recently with Canadians about ketchup chips.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we want to get into this.
They don't taste like ketchup, just so you know.
Well, we tasted them. They're terrible. So I think Dan just about threw up.
Yeah, they're when you're a child, they are okay. I'll say. I won't defend. I'm not going to go to bat for ketchup chips. I'll say.
All right, good on you. The one thing that we keep saying is that Americans, if anything, we know junk food. So you can trust our opinion on chips.
I think that's true. I also saw somebody in the chat. I'm going to one more shout out here. Somebody in the chat said that David works for the World Economic Forum. And guys, I just want to say, if we could cut down on the hate speech, like calling somebody out for working for the WEF, I think we're going a little too far here.
That crosses the line for
sure.
Yeah,
that's deeply offensive. So yeah. Anyways, I think I really enjoyed talking about that. Brianna, I very much look forward to trying things out, and yeah, I'll keep my eyes peeled for that wait list. But yeah, again, not to show it too much so I can bump myself up the wait list, but there's a link in the show notes. So yeah, let's do a little rotation. Let's jump to Brandon. Your chance, man. Feel free, rant away.
All right, my time to shine, huh? All right, so yeah, I'm very bullish because of all the country adoption. So last year we had El Salvador make Bitcoin legal tender. And it's kind of the success that's been going on in El Salvador has kind of pushed it forward in Latin America. So we've also seen Strike move into Argentina recently, and then that's kind of like trickled over into Brazil is now regulating Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. They're voting on a bill right now to regulate Bitcoin and crypto. I'm not always big on regulation, so to speak, but the fact that Bitcoin and crypto is kind of, in the discussions as far as like, in the political discussions here or there, I think that's, pretty significant that, the higher ups are recognizing, okay, this is a big deal. This is a big market. This is, something that's not necessarily going away. Is definitely very bullish going forward. And then we also had, a senator in Mexico that plans on submitting a bill to make Bitcoin legal tender in Mexico. So now we have, multiple Latin American countries come in. And, Latin America, maybe not quite as established as the United States, for example, or maybe as Canada or anything like that. But we're also seeing some traction in the United States as well. We recently had Colorado announce that they're going to accept Bitcoin as in taxes. And then California and Arizona also proposed to make Bitcoin legal tender. So I know that's kind of a lot ranting through, but overall, I think it's very bullish going forward that a lot of these countries, states, and places and governments overall are proposing to make Bitcoin legal tender or are proposing to accept Bitcoin. And, that just makes it big going forward. We got a lot of steps going on in the Lightning Network and things like that to make it easily transactable. I think people are kind of opening up to the fact that it is, extremely cheap to transact here back and forth and extremely quick too, right? So, I know, Ben, you're in Canada. I'm down in Florida. Banks are closed, but if I wanted to send you sats right now, I could do that seemingly instantaneously. And I think not only people and general plebs and things like that are opening up to that, but now governments are kind of seeing the power of Bitcoin and, I guess crypto to a lesser extent. And I just definitely think going forward, that's very big. And for governments to kind of get involved and encourage this to maybe some countries that aren't quite as developed and maybe haven't, heard of it or necessarily, or, some of these countries that are on the US dollar or on a currency that's very volatile, to kind of move towards Bitcoin and create a Bitcoin standard in that country, especially seeing the success in El Salvador, is very bullish for me going forward, because I think it's, kind of a slow adoption, like we were talking about earlier with the internet, and then slow, then all of a sudden it's very rapid. So I think we're kind of seeing the early parts where a few countries here or there, a few states here or there are, introducing Bitcoin as, somewhat making regulations, laws, legal tender, what have you. And then from there, it's going to keep continuing, and soon it won't be able to be stopped. It's like, all right, well, I got to get on the train or I'm going to get left behind, sort of thing. So I guess that's my little rant here or there. So I'll leave it to everybody else to let me know what they think about it.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There's been, there's been more kind of headlines and developments and interests around kind of the, not just nation states, but even more granular, getting down to municipalities and states, looking into incorporating Bitcoin in some way, whether it be treasury, whether it be legal tender laws, anything like that. There's been so much of it. And I think back a few years and seeing any headline like this would have been mind blowing. But now it's just, that Overton window has shifted. And, you see, California is considering, they're looking at a bill that's being tabled about Bitcoin being legal tender. And you're kind of like, oh yeah, that's cool. And it's just something that you hear more now, which it's easy to forget how far things have come and how much of a big deal that would have been without the context of El Salvador just last year. Just within a single calendar year, to see that much change and that be batted around is wild. I don't know, and maybe you guys will have a better idea about this, but what are the implications of an individual state declaring Bitcoin legal tender? Because there's I imagine the federal level, there's quite a bit of, I don't see overreach, but yes, overreach. There's a lot playing into that. So, what changes if there's a legal tender law within a state? Do we even know?
So I don't think that necessarily it'll do anything. I don't think it'll get passed or anything like that. But I think it's just a step in the right direction, right? I think it could be something similar to maybe sports gambling laws or marijuana legalization in the United States, where a few states do it here or there, and then all of a sudden, then it's all right. The whole entire states, or every single state, is like, all right, we have to make it legal tender because. People are fleeing to Arizona, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, like the states that are more Bitcoin friendly. And we're kind of already starting to see that in the United States. Texas and Florida, Tennessee, like these states that have stayed more open and are more Bitcoin friendly, seem to have a lot more people moving down to them, currently. So a lot of people kind of voting with their legs, so to speak, right now as well. So I think, these states, I know Illinois and Georgia recently passed some legislation to make Bitcoin mining more friendly in those states. Although energy isn't quite as abundant as like a state like Texas, it's definitely trying to bring people more in. So I think, as far as like the 50 states goes, there's just like, well, we have this big industry and it's rapidly growing. If we want to attract people to stay in our state or move to our state, we need to start adopting it as well. So not only on a global level, I think like in a state level in the United States, it's definitely kind of becoming almost like a turf battle where people are like, all right, well, we're more friendly than this state and et cetera, so.
Yeah. Interesting. I imagine it plays into the tax thing too, because federal, like if it's on a state level, it's considered legal tender, then capital gains tax, I don't know like at what level of government that's taxed at, or if it's both. But I'm curious if it would play into that as well, or if it would have to be federal.
Yeah, I mean, I know that it's unconstitutional to create your own legal tender on a state level. So with that being said, I'm not sure if there would actually be any effect at all, right? It would be largely symbolic, but I guess that symbolism is like kind of, we're standing in solidarity with the ideals of Bitcoin, right?
Well, and also the feds regulated weed, right? But then the states were like, except here, and then just like Colorado and places like that, you could just it was legal, but it wasn't. Like, how did that play out?
There could be a constitutional amendment, right? I guess nothing like this. There was one case, I forgot what it was called, but there was a case where a state tried to make their own currency, and that was found to be unconstitutional based on the fact that the currency is controlled at the federal level. So I don't know if that's just completely different precedent than drug laws, for example, right? So it could just be an entirely different area, but the Constitution was made to be amended, so you never know.
So we'll just say YOLOs.
It creates some interesting conflicts too. Like for marijuana, for example, it's legalized at the state level, but not at the federal level. So there are some states where, I don't know what you call them, dealers, I guess, or growers. They can't use they can't use a lot of the banks because the banks are regulated federally. So, there's some interesting conflicts that arise when a state tries to pass something that is technically not controlled or run by the federal government. So yeah, it's interesting. I did want to touch on, maybe we can come back to it, but I did want to touch a little bit on Brandon's points about LATAM adoption too, because I think I think we're more likely to see that before we see anything happen in the States. And a big part of it is just being able to receive remittance payments, right? I think that's a big part of what drove what happened in El Salvador, and it's paying off for them. Obviously, I saw a report that their tourism's way up, and it seems like people are really using it for remittance payments, which is great to see. And then, I think it's just a matter of time before something like this happens in Brazil or Venezuela or any other country that's kind of, if there's a lot of people that want to send money from the United States back home, and to do so without using something like Western Union would be huge for them. So I think we're more likely to see it in LATAM before we see it happen in the States. So
just so you know, El Salvador tourism is up 30% since it made Bitcoin legal, but the country is still on the brink of economic disaster.
Yeah, and the Fed doesn't want them to use it. So
thanks, Fortune. Thank you for that. just pepper that in there. Cool.
I also
Yeah,
think it's hilarious too. I think the United States was like investigating El Salvador's adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender, saying it was detrimental to the country and everything like that. And you see statistics like that, and yeah, it's just like how can you say those kind of things?
Isn't their GDP up like 10%, something like that?
Yeah, I think I saw somebody in the comments say that as well. And they said that that's like the first time that's ever happened. So obviously a great move. And I think, going forward, like these LATAM countries are seeing the success that El Salvador is having. And they're like, all right, well, if El Salvador is doing it and it's doing so well, we should implement it as well. So,
yeah.
Well, the other thing about El Salvador is they still can use the US dollar, but they're completely reliant on the US dollar, which is governed by people that they have no say in electing, right? Even us in the US, we don't elect the people at the Federal Reserve. We don't elect the Secretary of the Treasury. They're all appointed positions. So yeah, we elect the people that appoint them, but at the end of the day, it's like, why would a sovereign country like El Salvador want to be reliant on someone else's currency when they've got no say in the people that are controlling it?
Yeah. How dare they? How dare they try something totally different and not just rely on the US?
It's insane. Yeah. So I think good on them, and I hope to see more people do the same.
Yeah, and I mean it's so crazy because whenever I try to, explain Bitcoin to someone, I usually ask, do you ever have to send money abroad or to a family member? And sometimes the answer is yes, right? And so then I explain, I'm like, well, it's costly, it's a long process, and I'm sure your friends or your family have to go somewhere really far to get that money, right? And they're like, yeah. It's like, well, you can send money to friends and family abroad instantly for like $0, right? And immediately they're like, how do I do this? Can I do it right now? Right? And it's so simple to so many people. But I think the narrative just has to be much simpler, right?
Yeah. And it has to focus on, like you're saying, the network and not the asset, right? You've got Bitcoin, the asset, which is great, but then you've also got Bitcoin, the network, which is capable of doing things like instantaneous free remittance payments. And unfortunately, I think people in the US get caught up on Bitcoin, the asset, without thinking about Bitcoin, the network. And so, yeah, I think selling Bitcoin, the network, is way easier than selling the asset. When you're trying to sell the asset, they're saying, oh, well, it's volatile, and oh, it's just fake money. It's all of these things. And if you sell the network, I think it's way easier.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Well, I enjoy that topic. It's always interesting to see, again, how quickly things have moved, the Overton window shift. And, if we're used to this right now, you think a few years out, think of how much can happen again. Like it's that age old, again, people overestimate what can happen in a year, but they underestimate what can happen in a decade. And we're seeing that play out, because the second El Salvador did it, everybody's like, by the end of the year, like all of Central and South America is going to do this. And that's not exactly how things typically work. But go out 5 years, 10 years, what's it going to look like? It's probably going to have moved a lot quicker than people might assume, given the past year. So excited to see that. So any final thoughts on this topic? Anything else anybody want to throw in last minute? All good?
I'm good. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, let's do one more rotation here. Everybody in the chat, of course, keep them coming. David wants everybody to know that he says up 1 year, down 5 years. Is it though? I'm pretty sure it's like up 3 years, down 1 year for the entire history of Bitcoin. I'm pretty sure that's the case. But, we'll give you an L for that one. But, good try. At least you tried. Bart Simpson gif. But we're going to rotate. Dan, you are up. What are you bullish on this week? What are you excited about?
I've got 3 words. Marty on Tucker. I'm super bullish. Yeah, super bullish. I mean, so here's my thing. The vast majority of people that, at least in the US and probably in Canada, or maybe even globally, that use Bitcoin or have Bitcoin are holding it on an exchange in a hot wallet. They don't own their own keys. And so what I'm excited about is Marty Bank getting on one of the most watched news networks, or not networks, news shows in the country, and educating people on the importance of taking control over their own keys. And he's, of course, doing it in the context of what's happening in Canada right now. And it's the perfect context to relate this to people, right? Your bank account could be frozen in a heartbeat, no questions asked, no due process. If you think that these major companies, especially the publicly traded ones, we don't have to name names, but if you're holding it with one of these companies in the SEC or the IRS, if they slap a subpoena on this company, like, they're going to comply with that subpoena. Your information is going to be handed over, and you're at risk of asset freezing. So I'm just super bullish to see we're finally kind of getting into the mainstream, not just about buying Bitcoin, but about actually using Bitcoin the right way and holding your own keys. So it kind of circles back to what you were talking about at the beginning of the show. Privacy is a huge part of it. And at the end of the day, if you're not actually holding your Bitcoin, that's really not your Bitcoin, and it's at risk, just like your fiat's at risk. So happy to see Marty Bank get on Tucker Carlson and preach about this. So yeah, it's a short but sweet. I'm happy to see it, and it makes me extremely bullish.
I love it. First of all, well deserved for Marty. He's a legend in the Bitcoin space, in the mining space, in the podcast space. He's awesome. It's one of those go-to podcasts that you got to check out every week. And to see Marty up there, like, on the largest news network in America is it's something else. And there's been these past couple of weeks, there's been again, like, there's what's the other quote? There's decades where nothing happens, and then there's weeks where decades happen, or something to that effect. I feel like these past few weeks have been that happening. There's another, and to your point of this kind of mainstream coverage. Now, I will say it's a little politicized in this clip, but I'm gonna play it anyways. Did you guys see the Ted Cruz thing?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Holy shit. Okay. So he's at CPAC I imagine this was in Texas. I think so. And he's talking about Bitcoin. In particular, he's talking about Nunchuck Wallet's retort to the Canadian government and, like, the Ontario Justice, whatever it was, that emailed them a letter. I'll play it. I don't know how well. Let me know if the sound is coming through okay. One sec here.
So we need to decentralize. We need to break it apart. It's one of the reasons why I am so bullish on crypto, on Bitcoin. Because it is decentralized and not controllable. And let me give a fantastic example. So Justin Trudeau said, I don't like me some truckers, so we're going to seize your assets. So then the court went to try to seize the crypto that was being given to the truckers.
Bitcoin.
And I don't know how many of y'all saw a letter that I actually want to read from. It's a letter from a company, Bitcoin company, called Nunchuck. Here's part of the letter. Dear Ontario Superior Court of Justice, our software is free. We do not collect any user identification information beyond email addresses. We also do not hold any keys. Therefore, we cannot freeze our users' accounts. We cannot prevent them from being moved. We do not have the knowledge of, quote, the existence, nature, value, and location of our users' assets. This is by design. Please look up how self-custody and private keys work. When the Canadian dollar becomes worthless, we will be here to serve you too.
Yeah. A little wild to see it. Now, I will say he goes on to politicize it and say, oh, the left hates this because, and so he uses it obviously as a tool to drum up, like cheers and stuff like that. But in the end, he does point out kind of, how Bitcoin works. And a lot of people see stuff like this. And in the end, yes, this will politicize it, and people on the other side of the aisle will likely sneer at it and not be super excited. But eventually, it comes around to be useful for people on the other side of the aisle. And in the end, it's a tool. It's just a tool that anybody can use, and it can be as helpful as Bitcoin is for anyone. And so, if it's useful for somebody you don't like right now, it can still be equally useful for you when you need it. So I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, 1000%. The key though is that you've got to use the tools that allow you to take full advantage of what Bitcoin is. And Nunchuck might be able to send that letter, but a publicly traded company, they could send a letter like that and the next day be with a subpoena and have to give over your information.
Yes.
So again, to me, it's all about, it's like, make sure you're using the right tools. And then it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Well, those tools need to be accessible, easy to use, super intuitive. And so, yeah, I don't mind if my politics get out there. I like the speech. I like it.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it does kind of outline, regardless of what protest it's for, in the end, like, all of the issues that are happening over in Ukraine right now. Yesterday, in the first few hours, 14.5 Bitcoin were donated over there to help with the situation in a single day. That's and obviously instantly accessible, and can be used as they see fit over there. But it doesn't matter if again, a movement that you don't like utilizes it. It's apolitical. Anybody can use it. And I think even in the past couple of years, we've kind of seen that there is a need for that. There's a distinct need for apolitical, censorship resistant money for everyone. And there will continue to be a need for that, because, or what are you going to, just because somebody, a movement you don't like, was able to utilize it, are you going to then revoke that tool to people that you do agree with? Because then you're going to end up doing more damage than good. Not only that, but you can't really revoke the tool. It's there. Anybody can use it with the tools that they see fit. So, but I'll leave it up for other comments. I don't know, Brandon, Brianna, do you want to dive into anything that Dan said earlier, anything we're currently talking about?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Teddy Cancun over here, preaching for Bitcoin. I mean, as a guy, I'm originally from Texas, so I think everything that Ted Cruz is saying, is on point. So overall, I think just back to what Dan was saying with Marty Bent on Tucker Carlson, I think it just gives overall exposure to a different crowd that people necessarily didn't really hear about. My parents watch Fox News and all those kind of news outlets and things like that. So now that they're seeing exposure to Bitcoin, they've actually asked me to help them obtain some. When a few years ago, when I was telling them, hey, get into it, they thought it was a scam and only for drug deals and things like that. So it brings in a different audience for sure. And I think overall, it's just, more bullish to people coming in, going forward. So I definitely think a lot of exposure, and who better to have on there than Marty Bent. I mean, the guy is great. He, breaks things down very well. And, and he's now a resident of Austin, Texas too. So Texas represented out there as much as they can.
I gotta make a trip down there. I've never been to well, I shouldn't say I've never been, but I've been through airports, which doesn't obviously count.
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't count. Well, if you head down to Austin or something, let me know and I can give you some recommendations. It's changed a lot since I've lived there, but there's a lot of good spots that I still know for sure.
The BitBlock boom is happening in Austin again this year, right?
Yeah, it is. I don't know if I'll be at that one. Maybe if somebody in the audience, has a hookup to give me a ticket, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, I will be there. But other than that, it's a toss up at this point.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to make the pilgrimage. I feel like again, I'm kind of in the Texas of Canada, but it's still Canada, so I have to make a little trip. We'll see. Anyways, Brianna, I'm sorry, I'm cutting off time.
No worries. I just kind of wanted to go back to something that you said, which was that Bitcoin is apolitical, right? It's for everyone. People you don't like, people you love, people you don't even know. And of course, there are going to be people that use it that you really hate and you disagree with. But at the end of the day, no one can change that. No one can change the fact that everyone can use it. Everyone has access to it, right? So I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Ramal says, Bitcoin is even for David Wong. I just realized I said that, but it's true. It is, David. It's here for you. We're waiting. But yeah, I'm excited to see more Bitcoiners start to be plastered across the news, because it's going to be more and more relevant as time goes on, and there's a lot of very intelligent people in Bitcoin that I've come across that have a lot of unique perspectives and frameworks to look at the world, and I very much look forward to seeing them kind of orange pilling the masses bit by bit, segment by segment. So
I think Rogan's close. I think Joe Rogan's close, man, because Jordan Peterson's starting to talk about it a bit. I think he's been fully orange pilled, Peterson, but then he's had on a couple other guests where he's talked just a tiny bit about Bitcoin. So if Joe Rogan flips, man, good luck to everything else, because that would be huge.
Yeah, that'll be. He's got to get it at some point. I mean, he's obviously exposed to it. He kind of understands, but it's going to be hard to run from that eventuality. So we shall see. I don't know. So guys, I think I'm going to start rounding it out. But what I'd like to do is maybe just a round of final thoughts. And then I'll try not to put you on the spot too quickly here, but I'd also love to get a recommendation from you to the people watching of anything you'd like them to check out, whether it be a piece of content, a podcast you recently listened to, a book, an app to check out, really anything that you think would be valuable for people to take a peek at. This is your chance to impart some knowledge wherever you see fit. So I guess I'll kind of round it out just by saying we're kind of living through a time where a lot is happening in a short little window, and it makes me think of the book The Fourth Turning, where you go through these generational cycles, but there's kind of a big shift at the end, and the way that all our lives are lived drastically changes at kind of in that final generational shift. And if that thesis does indeed play out, I think we're kind of in the midst of it right now. There's a lot of things happening around the globe, and Bitcoin in part can offer a solution to a lot of problems that are out there, or at least a partial solution, depending on what the problem is. And so I think that these next few years and kind of through the 2020s, there are going to be just massive seismic shifts in the way that we look at reality, the way that we look at the world, and the way that we think and communicate as a species. And my hope is that we come out better on the other side of it, and that Bitcoin in part can be a mechanism for better communicating truth and better communicating the the aggregate will of people, at least economically. So that's kind of my hope. And I guess with saying that, my recommendation would be to read The Fourth Turning. It's really interesting. Whether or not you agree with it or not is totally fine. But it basically is a book based on the premise of there's a quote called it goes something like hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times, or people, we'll say. But regardless, it's kind of based on that premise, and depending on whether you're born in the good times or the bad times, or what shift. Oh, I see. Good. In the chat, just so you know, webcams-chat.com is in the chat, and there's hot girls and boys video chat. Let's ban that person. Block. Anyways, interjected in the middle of my rant. But anyways, it is a very interesting read, and I guess these next few years we'll see if the premise that they base the book on is indeed even partially true. So I'll leave it there. Let's rotate through. Brianna, do you have any final thoughts for the day? Anything you wanted to leave with, and any recommendations of stuff to check out?
Yeah, I think after this conversation, it's very clear that there is a need for Bitcoin everywhere, by everyone. And, even if people don't like it, even if they're skeptical about it at the end, we're all going to be using it, and most people won't even know it. So, I think just like you said, just like all of us said, it's in the next few years, and we're right in the middle of it. And I'm just really, really, really grateful that I get to be a part of this piece of history, and get to have these conversations, and that we're still all so early to this. So that's my final thought. And then obviously I'm going to tell everyone to check out Noah, noah.com, and sign up for the wait list. We're actually going to be putting out a bunch of great educational materials for folks who don't know much about Bitcoin at all. So yeah, check it out.
I see little Bitcoin bees, so I'm already happy. So yeah, excited to check it out. I'm glad you got to chat about it today. Awesome. We will rotate down to, well, before we get to Brandon, Canadian Bitcoiners want to know if you'll be talking about your recent purchase of Bored Ape NFTs.
I would, but they were stolen, unfortunately. They disappeared off OpenSea. So,
off open seized, right?
Yeah. Well, let's do Brandon, we'll go with you first. Final thoughts, and then any recommendations you may have for people to check out.
All right, final thoughts: just buy Bitcoin. Get on it, and get off zero if you're not already there. So, I guess recommendations, I'm not going to pump our own stuff. I'll let Dan do our little wrap up for that. I'll pump the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast. If you guys haven't listened to them, they're good buddies of ours. They kill it with the content. They've been interviewing a lot of great guests lately. And then This is Bitcoin podcast with our buddy Bitcoin Gandalf. And then he's also, at BTC Times, or at BTC on Twitter. If you guys are following that, they put out a lot of great news and things like that too, where you can stay up to date on the latest news, where the latest going on in the Bitcoin world. So, all right, Dan, I'll let you wrap it up and tell everybody what we got going on, I guess.
Go for it.
My takeaways are similar to everyone else's. It's utilize Bitcoin as a tool for financial freedom, and do so in ways that you actually can. Don't hold your own. You have to hold your own key. It's all the stuff that basically everybody preaches. You have to hold your own keys. Use it the way that it's meant to be used. And on top of telling people to check out our stuff, which you can find on Twitter at Green Candle IT, I'll tell people to pick up the book Ordinary Men by Christopher Browning, and just understand that your individual actions can have major consequences outside of yourself, and that can be good and bad. So take radical responsibility over your own life and make Bitcoin part of that, because that's how you take radical responsibility over your financial well-being.
Wow. I'm going to have to, I haven't read that, so I'm going to have to check it out. Interesting. Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time. Friday is always the best day. I get to just hang out with Bitcoiners and chat. So I appreciate that. Canadian Bitcoiners echo you. Radical financial responsibility. So yeah, thanks again for being here. You are all welcome back anytime. So have a great weekend.
Cheers to that. Let's do it.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
Awesome. And everybody here, thank you for watching. Always the best part of my week. I always love my Fridays, hanging out with Bitcoiners, getting to chat. So I appreciate you all being here. Of course, like, subscribe, share, all those things, super important. They really do help the channel. If you want to help the channel in another way, you can hit up the previously mentioned sponsors down below. Shakepay, LEDN, Bitrefill, Keystone, BillFodl, they're all down below. That link for Noah as well, if you want to sign up for the wait list, it's down below. And then finally, if you really liked what you saw, you can always hit up my Strike page and leave a Bitcoin tip there. Basically, you go there, strike.me/BTC sessions, type in any amount you want. When you hit the tip button, you'll be greeted with a Lightning invoice, or if you tap to the right, a regular Bitcoin QR code. With that, I'm out. Have yourselves a wonderful day or weekend, I guess. And I'll see you guys next time for your daily session.
Hodl the Bitcoin.